Thank you, Honourable Speaker, sir. I'm sure you could jump onto the second step of the bus, sir. You'd be very happy to see you do that. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honourable Acting Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Members of Parliament, fellow Fijians, very good afternoon to all of you. No, good morning still, sir. I wish to contribute to the performance report, and I thank the Standing Committee for the work undertaken to reach the recommendations, sir. Honourable Speaker, sir, the Ministry has made comprehensive contributions to the review of the Performance Audit report on the access for persons with disabilities to public offices and public transport. As described, Honourable Speaker, sir, by the United Nations in 2007, accessibility is about giving equal access to everyone, and without being able to access the facilities and services, persons with disabilities will never be fully included. The inefficiency of accessibility to public transport has led towards an inconvenience and prohibits many disabled persons from moving around freely. I'm sure we will all agree to that particular statement, sir. But this again, Honourable Speaker, sir, is not a local issue, but it's actually a global issue. Access to public transportation is one of the biggest issues for people with disabilities. Without accessible transportation, many people with disabilities simply cannot go to a school or to a workplace, or hindering their full participation in society, as echoed in the sentiments earlier expressed. We understand that this was a performance audit undertaken by the Office of the Auditor General, which is the type of audit that understands the current activities and suggests improvements to the processes and systems in place. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Performance Audit report reveals that according to the 2017 Population and Housing Census by the Fiji Bureau of Stats in 2018, 13.7% of the total population were reported to have had at least one functioning challenge. This means that 113,595 people out of the population of 884,887 have some form of disability. However, sir, what the report fails to specify is whether all the functioning challenges restrict a person from using public transportation or having access to public information. In order for the ministry responsible for transportation to develop better policies, it is important that data is available on how many people with disabilities access public transport and how many are actually finding it impossible to access public transport because of their disability, and that the public transport is actually not conducive to their specific conditions. Mr. Speaker, sir, such performance reports by the OAG lack objectivity and many times a purpose. The OAG did not undertake a performance assessment with an open and objective mind. Their mindset, as in all their audits, is always that the organization is doing wrong and that they are going there to find problems and not to acknowledge the good work that's actually being done. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course I know they're supposed to be independent, but they're not acting like that. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2018 enshrines the right for a person to be able to access public transport, public office, and information. Mr. Speaker, sir, what needs to be said is that it's no use coming here and making it the flavor of the month and come and speak loudly about it now. Before this government came along, nothing was done. Absolutely nothing was done. People with disabilities were just put by the wayside, Honourable Speaker, sir. Never before, Honourable Speaker, were persons with even a hearing impairment able to access information that was made available to the general public. This government did so, Honourable Speaker, sir. Today, Honourable Speaker, sir, Parliament sessions are televised and made online with experts conveying the information through sign language. Who did that, Honourable Speaker? We did that, Honourable Speaker. We did that. All important announcements, Honourable Speaker. It's no use jumping on the bandwagon now about it. When you were on this side of the House, you never did anything. All important announcements. Disability has been around since time immemorial. Nobody did anything about it then. It's being done now by this government, Honourable Speaker. All important announcements, Honourable Speaker, relating to COVID-19 were broadcasted on all forms of media, not just in written form, Honourable Speaker, sir. The report fails to acknowledge such steps by the government to have information readily available to all citizens of Fiji. The report identifies gaps in terms of coverage of Section 29 of the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2018. However, Honourable Speaker, Section 29 provides broad coverage in terms of accessibility and is not prescriptive, as that the Act would limit application of the legislation. There are certain recommendations within the Standing Committee report that we acknowledge, Honourable Speaker. And as the ministry responsible for transport, we have taken on board and we are addressing and we will continue to address these issues, Honourable Speaker, sir. I am personally working with the Land Transport Authority and MSAF to ensure that the appropriate changes are made to the respective legislations to mirror the accessibility provisions of the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2018, sir. It is being done as we speak. It is a large task, but it is being done, Honourable Speaker. I can assure you of that. I wish to reiterate, Honourable Speaker, that disability is a human rights issue. And as highlighted in the report, that people with disabilities have the same absolute rights to life and welfare, education, work, access to all community facilities, self-determination, independent living, and active participation in all aspects of society as all other human beings. This little statement, sir, only became prominent because of this government, Honourable Speaker, sir. The findings on the accessibility of disabled persons to public transport, and noting that the Land Transport Public Service Vehicles Regulations 2000 was amended in 2015 to accommodate for access of persons with disabilities to public transport, sir. I now wish to specifically focus on the requirements of this particular provision, sir. A driver of a PSV cannot refuse to carry a person with disabilities. The driver of a PSV must assist persons with disabilities when boarding or disembarking a vehicle. The owner of a PSV has the obligation to ensure that the vehicle is user-friendly for persons with disabilities. Persons with disabilities must sit in the first 2 rows of seats in a bus or seats closest to the driver of the PSV. And signage needs to be made available to indicate the priority seats. Now, as you can see, sir, there are provisions that are there already, but we continue to better them, Honourable Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the quality assurance maintenance systems and the household travel surveys are 2 crucial mechanisms that actually can be used to get the private sector to move towards user-friendly buses. I'm sure the Minister for Economy in his wisdom is actually thinking about these things as we speak, maybe budget time. Honourable Speaker, sir, the HCS will also determine the travel partners and the persons using public transport. The report, Honourable Speaker, sir, criticises the lack of public buildings having accessibility for persons with disability. Whilst it is considered that over a decade ago proper considerations were not being given by the approving authorities, Honourable Speaker, sir, on the inclusion of disability provisions in the building developments, greater efforts have been made and are continuing to be made by the Department of Town and Country Planning, sir, especially since 2019, to impose conditions and to enforce the appropriate legislative requirement on disability provisions under the Town and Planning General provisions, sir. This effectively requires proponents of all commercial, all civic and high-rise residential apartment developments to have disability provisions as part of their outlined and detailed building plans in compliance with the requirements of Schedule G of the Town Planning General Provisions. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's noted that most of the public and private sector building developments that have been newly constructed are displaying disability provisions, such as ramps, designated car park and access to lifts, though these are thoroughly checked by the municipal councils before completion certificates for the buildings are actually issued. So quite a considerable amount of work has been done, sir, and accepted. We continue to do so, sir. It is also important to acknowledge that some of the recent building developments have disability provisions, like the Damodar City Complex, the Roops Mega Complex, the Tapo City buildings in Suva and Latoka. Whether it's the Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the Attorney General, or the Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism, Transport, Ministry of Health, or Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, access for all Fijians, Honourable Speaker, is provided. Our staff are also available to clients and customers who are not comfortable in entering elevators, sir. We take our services to our people, no matter what we are required to do, Honourable Speaker. To conclude, sir, the findings of the reports have identified some important areas of improvement, and it is acknowledged, sir. But at the same time, we do say this, sir, that the report has failed to acknowledge the reforms and the changes that have been undertaken by the Fijian government over the years. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Fiji First government has worked on improving the standards of living for all Fijians, Honourable Speaker, sir. We will never deny anybody their rights, sir. Fiji today is a much better place than it was in over a decade ago. We will continue to work on the policies, regulations, initiatives that will enhance accessibility to public transport, Honourable Speaker, sir. With those comments, sir, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important debate.
I thank the Honourable Minister for his contribution.